Good morning, Deep. Hope you're having a
Well,
wonderful weekend.
yeah, I'm having a good weekend, but a bad throat.
Yeah. So it's interesting, Deep. We are getting together to talk about this after many months. But I think sometime last year, the two of us had a chat about focusing on the role of the CRO, which is becoming an emerging sort of a functional juggernaut in organizations across the world. And I think there was this nascent thought, right, that the customer experience itself in B2B industries has sort of hit multiple silos. So you've got marketing silos, sales silos, service silos, strategy silos, etc. And ultimately, as the world moves towards technology, a holistic integrated customer experience means that somebody in the organization has to orchestrate that. And that sort of, I think, lay the foundation for the role of the CRO. I think I must thank you from Markets and Markets, Deep. With your assistance, I think we pulled off a wonderful season 1 of the CRO Talk Series. So I just briefly wanted to start by asking you, as the moderator and as the orchestrator, so you were, I would say, the CRO of CROs in that season 1. What were some of the interesting takeaways you had from that season?
Thank you, Krishnan, and thank you to the Markets and Markets team. I think it was fun. Season 1 was fun. I think we really enjoyed each and every interaction. I personally enjoyed. It's not just the host enjoying, the main guest also enjoying. I think we received very good feedback from all of them. Obviously, CRO as a role has been there for more than a decade. Right, that's what we discussed, right? Forbes came out with an article maybe 12 years back saying that the CEO's new weapon is a CRO. So what does it mean? When we reflect back on season 1, we actually looked at 2 or 3 different aspects. Number 1, what is exactly the role of the CRO from all the stakeholders? The first one is customer, right? As you said, is it the single point of contact or a single point of failure, right? From a customer's perspective, right? So that's number 1. Number 2, from the CEO's perspective, what is the, what does a CRO supposed to do? What does a CEO supposed to do? And the various other C-suite. I think we explored some of that. We also explored from a investor's perspective. What is the role of the CRO, and when should a company, look at a CRO, hiring a CRO, and onboarding them and things like that. We also had the good part of it. We had truly digital native companies, like we had the former CRO of Coupa, which is truly a digital native company. We also had CROs who are transforming their existing business to more of a subscription model, to more about gaining a better customer success, better stickiness, a better, I would say, a recurring revenue model. And what are the changes in their sales engagement, customer-facing engagement they're driving internally? So I think the Danfoss engagement, the Finastra engagement, as well as the Juniper engagement, we explored some of those. So I think there are nuggets in each one of those interactions. We explored the role of the CRO from different aspects. And at a different maturity of the organization, what would be the role of the CRO? So, I think that's at a high level. I would say our learning and our, I would say, realization as we went through this journey.
That's very interesting, Deep. And obviously, it's not easy to come up with a framework that defines the entire front office for any organization, specifically in B2B. And I know, Deep, given your history at SAP, SAP believes in the LACE framework, right? Land, adopt, consume, expand. Multiple people have other frameworks. So I just wanted your comment, because one of the learnings I had as the conversation went on in the series 1, and something at M&M we have now tried to build upon, is we've sort of started seeing the entire front office, the CRO's process or the reference architecture for the CRO, as it were, as something like a bow tie, which means there's, even if I take the LACE framework, there's something before LACE and there's something after LACE. And if I sort of, maybe I won't explain this very well, but right in the beginning, you have the funnel from the market itself, where it's important to define where you're going to play for your revenue line, because that's what will ultimately set up the quality of demand and conversion and things like that. And then, of course, you play the entire demand game, the pipeline game, you convert and you win. And that's when you sort of land, on the neck part of the bow tie. And your job isn't over yet, because you start expanding on the other side of the bow tie with the expansion first, and then with what I would call the whole strategic partner game, where with the same client, you now acquire very significant strategic status. So, not just one funnel, but the funnel into land, and then you refunnel out as you expand within the organization. So that obviously is a very complex task. What were your views on how well the CROs you spoke with are handling this level of complexity?
We had a good mix of purely digital native or cloud companies, which are subscription-based companies from day one. Others were trying to shift to subscription-based, right? From a typical land to expand model, right? So, and I'll put two perspectives. First and foremost, all this is possible once you've achieved product market fit, depending upon the development of the company. Let's say I'm expecting the early stage companies, post product market fit is when they try to scale. Some of these matrices comes in. On the other hand, I would say the public listed companies, the large companies who are trying to shift their business model. Fundamentally, what they're trying to do, Krishnan, is till so far, whether it's an early stage company or a very late stage company, they are focused mostly on customer acquisition, right? Then it goes through, like, as you know, goes through different departments. Like there's a customer success team, there's an engineering team, there's an implementation team. The person who was engaged, whether it's account manager or whosoever it is, was engaged in the first, or the solution architect who was engaged, has no line of sight whether the customer is successful, whether the use, I would say that whether the adoption is happening, whether the customer is actually happy with the product, what are the features they're using, so on and so forth. And that's a problem which is there on both sides of the model. Means companies which are trying to transform, companies which are trying to scale. The reason what happens is that if your customers are not happy, if they're not, let's say, adopting your product, suppose you acquired a new customer, they are not adopting your product, they're not using your product, let's say the best features of your product within the first 30 days, 90 days, this thing, there's always a signal that, look, adoption and usage is not happening. Who in the organization is actually managing those signals as an early warning, right? So I would say this is more like, and the reason that is important is whether we are trying to scale or whether you're trying to transform, right? Success in a revenue model or on a subscription model depends upon how the customer is adopting, how they're using the system, how they're using your software, right? How you're using your platform to be able to drive their business objective, right? In the process, in the hustle bustle, everybody gets lost. So first and foremost, the role of the CRO is to bring, I would say, the booking revenue and the order booking and the revenue engine, streamline that through gaining those insights, right? And I'll come to that your bow tie kind of a concept. So the fundamental of it is, what happens is that when you sell a product to a new company or a existing customer, is your customer success team measuring the adoption? Are they measuring the usage? Are they looking at the user satisfaction? Right? Which are the early signals? Right? I think that's the key aspect of ensuring that whether you call it the LACE model or whether you call it the booking to revenue model, be streamlined. So the entire process is called onboarding, the customer onboarding journey, and how fast you can make them productive is the most important aspect. Now, what happens is that growth is good, but what market values is not just booking growth. What market values in subscription is revenue growth. And I think that's something somebody has to be accountable for.
That you've just brought up a very interesting point. So obviously, booking is a far simpler view, let's say, of the front office, but converting to revenue in this new, say the brave new world, is a different ballgame altogether, because your conversion from booking to revenue is predicated upon extremely good adoption, consumption, satisfaction with the service, with the platform, advocacy, more people starting to use. So I think that the idea, and let me get a little bit philosophical about this, is traditionally we have operated the front office through functional silos because the focus has been on efficiency. So we go implement MarTech tools and we have more efficient lead management or a CRM, and we have better, sales management, more efficient sales calls and such like. The new dimension you're bringing is the game that has to be played is a game of effectiveness, which means the transaction must generate an outcome. Doing an efficient transaction for the sake of the transaction is not going to help us. I can go and efficiently close a net new sale, but it is only effective if that converts into adoption, consumption, utilization, and revenue. So the gap, I would say, between transaction and revenue is the move from efficiency to effectiveness. Now, if you were to agree with that statement, what does a CRO do in your opinion? What did you learn in season 1 about the gap between efficiency and effectiveness?
Yeah, I think very important question. And you started with that. You started by saying CRO is integrating function, whether they're taking care of only sales, whether they're taking care of marketing plus sales, whether they're taking care of marketing, sales, and customer success. But that's an integrating function, right? That's an integrating function. And depending upon the scale of the company, in some companies, CRO only takes care of sales, like very, very matured companies. In early to mid-stage companies, CRO possibly takes care of all the stages as you build up your efficiency. But one thing I wanted to say, essentially in a subscription model, whatever technology you're doing, whatever underlying you're doing, whether it is SaaS, whether it is platform, whatever you're doing, the most important aspect of it, you will have to have that pedal on the booking growth, like with MarTech, CRM and all that. There is no letting down of that. How efficiently you convert your booking, right, into revenue. What is the time lag, right? And what is the early, so that, your churn rate reduces, right? Your customer satisfaction improves, right? And your predictability of your revenue growth becomes more consistent. Because end of the day, if you put an investor's hat on, whether it's a public investor or a private investor, at a certain scale, what they look at is what is called a capital efficient growth. Means if I'm let's say spending $100, $70 typically would go, or $80 will go when you're on the post product market fit, or a large organization, listed company. A lot of costs will go to SG&A cost, which is sales, marketing, and things like that. Right? What is your CAC break-even time? Is it taking 12 months, 18 months? What is your customer acquisition cost to your lifetime value? Because the entire thing, entire model, the way it works, unlike in the previous, I would say, on-premise world, the entire model works around how do you create a lifetime value for the customer and a value for all the stakeholders within the organization, right? It has to be customer first, then the rest of the stakeholders. And only way you can create lifetime value is the customer starts driving value, customer starts adopting, customer starts utilizing the system in their day-to-day business, right? And that will be persona based. So I guess these are the parameters which as a CEO or as a CRO or any role, or as a CMO or CEO at a board level, at a C-suite level, everybody needs to be focused on that. when you have post product market fit, whether you're a listed company, whether you're a driving transformation, or whether you're a growth stage company. So I think that's the most important thing. And how do you gain insight and intelligence, right? So just to repeat, gaining customers once you're post product market fit, you have a process of doing it. You want to do it faster? Absolutely. Answer is yes. But faster at what cost, right? Am I throwing in money and not able to convert maybe at least 90-95% of them into revenue? And even if let's say if I sign up 100 customers, but 25 customers, or 30 customers churned out. So you're on a leaky boat, right? So the economics is quite this thing. So if you're on a leaky boat, it doesn't matter how much you clean up the water. Take the water out of the boat, you'll keep sinking. So I think keeping the parameters on that, that's why I said, it is important. And for no, at every stage of company, booking growth has to happen. That's a basic bloodline, lifeline, I would say, right? But everybody is obsessed about the booking growth, right? The revenue growth is equally important, if not more.
This is what you're saying. Would it be correct to say that if you've got a top of the line CRO, or companies which have the best of CROs would always show better revenue conversion from booking to revenue than anybody else?
So the way it works, the way the maths work is very clear. What is called NRR rate, net retention revenue rate. Let's say I enter a new year with $100 in revenue. Net of churn, am I doing on the same customer base, right? Net of churn, am I doing $70? Am I doing $125? I'm doing $140. That's one parameter, right? On the other parameter is how many new customers I've signed up and how fast am I able to make them into revenue. And that is where the CAC break even comes in, right? So these are the two parameters which a CRO, sales, and whatever name you put it under, a CEO has to take care.
This is interesting because clearly through season one, you have managed to crack the definition of success. So the outcome, the dashboard, the scorecard, the baseline of what should define the CRO's role from an outcome perspective. I think, would you agree that season two would be a wonderful opportunity to now deep dive and ask the how question? So the what and the how does the CRO do to actually reach those outcomes?
Yeah, and I'm looking forward towards that, because that's devil lies in the details in everything, right? And it is the how which differentiates between the best of the companies and not so the thing. It is how you execute, how you plan, how you collaborate, the entire piece of it. And that's where putting more, as I said, it is not one over the other. It is about booking growth, revenue growth, right? So how do you manage to be on the two boats together and continue to drive is the art.
Yeah, it's a bit like the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, Deep. The answer seems to be clear. It is 42, but we have to examine the question.
Correct.
So Deep, if I were to ask you, and this is in line with season two, as you might be aware, we have many CROs and other senior sales and strategy leaders who, enthused by the success of season one, have been keen to speak and to engage with you in the season two. So if you were to think about the season two, which is the how season, broken into, say, a very broad construct of certain chapters that you would like to examine with the panel of speakers who are coming together for season two, what sort of chapters would you think are the ideal ones for us to look at?
I think very, very relevant and a good question. Since we have I looked at the panel who are coming across. There's a very, very interesting and eclectic panel, and from wearing different, I would say hats. So which is pretty exciting. Let me put it first and foremost, and congratulations to Market and Market team to be able to attract such, I would say, industry stalwarts into the forum. So that's one. What I would like to do is on deep dive on the how part is how companies are thinking about driving revenue growth, right? While we want to talk about success, we also learn from the challenges, right? We also want to learn from the challenges. We also want to learn. If we have to retrace the clock 18 months back, 24 months, what could have been done differently? Is it more insight? Is it better research? Is it better, analytics? Is it better, decision-making kind of a thing? Because every CXO take bets, right? And data will never be 100%. So if they have to rewind, what would be their key learnings from both the successes and the lack of successes they have achieved, right? And what would be their advice to the audience? That's what I would like to look at from that perspective. And any specific methodologies, tools, more specifically, framework they're using, they've learned. Because end of the day, what happens, Krishnan, is everybody builds their own framework. They also have to partner. They also have to get, I would say, many stakeholders into this, because you can't win this battle or the journey on your own. Doesn't matter how big the company is.
So Deep, let's put then, sort of 3 drivers for season 2. One, of course, is the transition from booking to revenue and what makes that possible. Second, like you said, let's discuss the mistakes and see what went wrong. And third is, let's understand the collaboration. So what are all the pieces across the organization that need to be put together and orchestrated to that outcome, and understand how that works, or how people that itself may actually prove to be a highly non-trivial challenge given dynamics in most organizations. So that's wonderful, Deep. I think we are looking at a very, very exciting season 2 of CRO Talks coming up. And I know personally that there are lots of aspirational young people who are charting careers in sales, who have realized that the pinnacle is not head of sales, but is the CRO, which is the emerging new discipline that they, is the 36th chamber, as it were, in the sales Shaolin Academy. And I think it's going to be a wonderful learning for all of them, because the 3 things you mentioned are extraordinarily good as a syllabus to develop professional knowledge and competence. So Deep, once again, I really wanted to thank you. I think you are doing seminal work. You're bringing this together and creating new kinds of insight and learning for professionals across the planet. And for your information, using season 1 at Markets and Markets, we have launched a CRO community that already has 90 active members who are CROs across the world. And we think that conversation, this community, is only going to get stronger and stronger. And from the conversation, I think we will see the birth of a high impact and new discipline. Thank you.
Absolutely. Deep. Thank you. And maybe just as a parting comment, I guess by end of season 2, Markets and Markets should be able to come up with a playbook for CRO. Because by then you would have almost met with who's who of the global community.
That is my homework. As you're aware, at the end of season 1, we did come up with I would say, pretty good white paper.
Right.
I think you have now given us the homework that by end of season 2, we now need to build the playbook, and I will take that as my personal task to complete.
Fantastic. Awesome. Thank you, guys.